Welcome to Fairlawn. Today, the island of your life may be sunny and warm. The beach may be a place of happy rest of Thanksgiving. Somebody might be bringing you a pina colada and celebrating with you. You may be sitting on the beach working up the courage to go tumbling in the surf. You may be threatened by an uncontrollable tide and unsure if you remember how to swim. You may need someone beside you to deal with the threat.
We come together from our separate lives this morning, each of us bringing our concerns, our preoccupations, our hopes, and our dreams.
Then the Holy One said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you alone are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and its mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, the male and its mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the air also, male and female, to keep their kind alive on the face of the earth, for in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. And every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground." And Noah did all that the Holy One commanded him. Noah was 600 years old. 600 years old. When the flood of the waters came on the earth, and Noah with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the waters of the flood came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deeps burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and the rain fell on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, I be on to the light. Take my hand. Precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near, and my life is almost gone. Hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. and the day is past and gone. At the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. At the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
We don't always have the luxury of controlling a flood. Sometimes it's just about making sure everyone around us is safe, and sometimes we fail. Sometimes we build resilience for the cleanup we know is coming, but it's not easy when the water is rising rapidly. And that could be a description of our world right now. What are you going to do? One person forced to their roof was asked in the documentary. I can swim, but not for long. While I was down there, I saw so many times the value of coming alongside, how a little help could get a discouraged group of folks over the hump. I remember one house where the insurance company had provided them with money to replace all the drywall in their house, and what they had been given for drywall was not humidity proof. So within a year it was molding at the bottom and it all had to be torn down. That's when we arrived at their house. And we had to rip all of it out, around the bathroom fixtures, everything. It all had to come out. And they had no money. We did. We replaced it all with the proper drywall. We were there for a couple of days. Well, some people were there for 3. They don't let me mud drywall, but it's 2 or 3 days. The next time we went down, they found out we were down there and they called us to visit, and you would not have believed that house. It was completely different, but they were so discouraged when we got there. They sat there stunned while we were doing the work for them. When we went back, that guy was a New Orleans Saints fan, and it was gold and black all through everywhere. And there wasn't a speck of mold anywhere. It was a beautiful house. They had us for a meal. But when the storm hits and the levees break, when life comes flooding in, when we are faced with an impossible moment of fear, we know that our, what some people call our reptilian brain takes over, and we fight, or we flee, or we freeze. Some say we also may fawn, placating a person who is threatening us, but there is no appeasing a storm. The fight, flight, or freeze response refers to our involuntary physiological changes that happen in the body and mind. It can cause rapid breathing, flushed skin, tense muscles, and the response is intended to help keep us safe, preparing us to face, to escape, to hide from danger. So we fight. We take action to eliminate the danger, or we flee to escape, or we freeze, become immobile, seemingly beyond help, until we decide to trust someone else. Noah, as imagined by the Presbyterian author and preacher Frederick Buechner, wrote, Noah could never forget how little by little the waters had risen, first just spreading in over the kitchen linoleum and trickling down the cellar stairs, but eventually floating newspapers and family photographs off tables and peeling wallpaper off walls until people were driven to the rooftops, where they sat wrapped in blankets with their transistor radios on their laps, looking up for a break in the clouds and reassuring each other that this must be the clearing shower at last. He remembered the animals he'd had to leave behind. The old sow with her flaxen lashes, squealing on top of a hen house as the ripples lapped at her trotters, the elephants awash up to their hips, a marmalade cat with one ragged ear clinging to a TV aerial as a pair of parakeets in a wicker cage floated by over what had once been the elementary school gym. He could have been describing New Orleans. He also remembered the endless days in the ark, the miserable food, the seasickness, the smells. When the downpour finally stopped, he sent birds out to see if they could find any dry land anywhere, and he remembered watching them fly away until they were no bigger than fly specks on a window pane, remembered the feeling in his stomach when they finally flew back, having found no place to roost. The Noah story traditionally is a story of judgment and causes us discomfort. Discomfort with the notion of a judgy God who, without reconsidering, destroys life. There's a happy ending, but only for a handful of people. The story may reveal something in our psyches, a glee at worst, a smugness at best. When we see bad people get what's coming to them, we practice schadenfreude as we note the logical consequences of their decisions until we realize that our smug judgmentalism is participation in evil. It's one of the reasons we have Lent, to try and get out into the wilderness and examine ourselves. And sometimes we don't like what we see. Jesus in the Gospels is driven out into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, the same length of time the story tells us it rained on the ark. And we read the account of Jesus heroically resisting the temptations to satisfy his needs, to claim power, to test his relationship with God. Heroically and with great focus, he banishes Satan. We don't always read it keeping in mind that he might have been frozen by responsibility, or fled it, or was fighting it. And that's why he went away. He was hungry. He was hungry for power. He was hungry for validation. And he allowed the experience to change him. So is the story of Noah one of judgment, or is it a story of something else? Is it a story of resilience? Looking beyond ourselves to care for as much of creation as we are able. So when the waters lap at the lives of others, we are called to look beyond ourselves, to bring our resilience, to care for as much of creation as we are able. Or is it about being judgmental? After Katrina, many stood at a distance and criticized people for building homes 5 meters below sea level and counting on levees built by the federal government to protect them. They were criticized. They were said, you got to get to higher ground. You got to move. You got to get out of there. Leave St. Bernard Parish. Abandon the lower Ninth Ward. Go to higher ground in Houston, in Atlanta, in Utah, and stay there. A week after the floodwaters subsided, Developers were driving around in vans taking videos of all the wrecked houses and the properties that they knew were going to be available. Leave this land. It's foolish to stay here. Sure, leave the land. The people who lived there were the descendants of manumitted slaves from the Civil War. Their great-grandfathers had been given the land to settle because of their service. They'd been given those lands to settle, but because they were manumitted slaves, they weren't given deeds, just permission to settle. And as long as their families stayed in the houses on the properties that they built, they could stay in the family. They could stay. But the minute they moved out and gave up that property, they abandoned all rights to it. Leave? Give up what was given to our families, and that where we have raised our children, and our children's children, and our children's children, leave? We have nowhere to go if we leave. I met a lot of people who not only had to rebuild their homes and souls, but had to do it in the face of opposition. What do we do when the things that keep us safe and secure are breached? Those of you who have been through a severe storm, particularly on water that most of us take for granted as cradling us, know that those empty seas can be a wilderness too. What happens when the levees break? One of the places we worked was a children's daycare center. And the neighborhood was a little bit violent because there are a lot of people struggling with mental health issues, trying to rebuild their homes or just squatting there. There were looters. So they came up with a plan for us to be safe while we worked there. And the plan was Miss June. Miss June had a 40-foot-long pink Cadillac. And she parked it out in front of the daycare. And if anybody came along to hassle us, she would get out of the car and she would walk over to them and she'd say, "Where's your mama?" And she would talk them down, and we just kept working. And when she wasn't having to deal with anybody else, all day long, she just sat, leaned over the steering wheel, praying all day. I invite you to join her as we offer our prayer of confession. Gracious One, you created all of us in your image. Open our hearts and minds to this reality. Let us recognize that we are all your beloved children. You are community, creator, child, and spirit. Help us to foster community in our neighborhoods. Teach us to be one as you are one. Teach us to love as you love. Open our eyes to the sin of racism. Show us where it exists in our society. Please grant us the courage to denounce it, but always with a loving heart like yours. Enlighten our minds to be aware of our own weaknesses, and gently teach us not to act out of our own biases. Teach us to celebrate our differences and see diversity as strength. Please grant us the grace to work together for an end to racism in our world. We long to live together in your household as siblings. Amen.